Welcome to the Restaurants Grow podcast, where you get tips, tricks, and tactics on how to grow your restaurant business. Today, we have on the show Brian Siemienas, the Vice President of Restaurant Solutions from Nift. Millions of consumers use the Nift platform to discover and enjoy local businesses where they live. I'm a user. Restaurants leverage that platform to automate full funnel, trackable new guest acquisition. Brian, my friend here, he is no stranger to restaurant marketing. He's been doing it for 25 years. Formerly leading the marketing for brands like Darden and all of their restaurants in Hard Rock. Most recently, he was the CMO for Margaritaville Restaurants and Landshark Bar and Grill, and he still owes me a visit to Margaritaville in Times Square. Brian, much like your buddy Rev here, is a huge proponent of omni-channel marketing systems, understanding guest insights, and knows that guest acquisition without contact data, well, let's just say that's not optimal. Brian's also an avid theme park enthusiast and passionately follows college and NFL football. I'm very excited to have Brian on the show because every time I talk to him, we end up thinking of new ways to increase restaurant marketing efforts. Fun fact, Brian has visited every single Disney park around the globe, and he's happy to tell you all about them. Brian, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Rev. I'm really excited to be on with you today. We've certainly known each other for many years, share a lot of, the same thoughts and beliefs, and, looking forward to hopefully helping some people out there right now. As we know, now is one of those challenging periods of, time for restaurants and restaurant marketers, and hopefully they'll be able to take something away that they can go execute and, make their life a little bit easier in driving traffic and sales.
For sure. And I promise not to give any spoilers for Thunderbolts. Okay. Brian, if you were to start at a new restaurant brand today, let's say it's a multi-unit brand, as the head of marketing, what would you do on day number one?
So day number one, I would get with the team and understand all of the systems we have and how are we doing everything from, my past. I worked with Marquee for management, the content, understand how are you dealing with guest complaints? How are you dealing with Google ratings and all the reviews? Because as we know, that's so critical in everything. People nowadays, it's a lot easier. They don't go and look for an ad. It's a matter of, okay, I'm going to go see what the rating is for these restaurants. It's also understanding what's powering the CRM. What does the tech stack look like? How are you dealing with first-party online ordering? In some cases, there's some that are still, in the infancy of what tools and systems are utilizing. Again, I've been there. I've been with big brands, and you go in and there's still those things, as I like to say, they're MacGyvered together, duct tape. And, it doesn't matter. I've been with some of the biggest, and there's things where you go in and you just scratch yourself. And it's not that it isn't important or that a marketer doesn't understand. It's like everything, prioritizing what's the most critical and getting as far as you can. So it's, truly as a marketer, understanding what do you have, and then looking at, okay, what's working? I mean, every concept, there's things that work great. The thing, that I think is important, and I've been at brands where people come in above me, is understanding, utilizing the tools and the expertise of those that are there to focus your energy on what's going to move the needle as quick as possible versus what's the nice to haves, down the road that you can deter either for budget reasons or time reasons.
So a look at the system, like what marketing tools we have, what's understanding what's currently working. That sounds like what I would do too, which is easy for me to say after you said it.
Yeah.
The other thing I would do is I would check out, do they have an espresso maker? Because I need that, but amen. When I'm working with restaurant clients, I kind of do the same thing. Tell me what's working. Tell me other things. And then is this something you do? I'm looking for what's the thing I can do today? How can I tune this engine right now to improve something? Would you do that?
Yeah, to your point, and assessing it, what's the lowest hanging fruit? And every brand has it. Again, I've been at brands for a period of time. You get tunnel vision. You need that new outside perspective, whether it's a person coming on board, a new marketing leader, a new team member, a new agency. So from the aspect, there's a lot of things that maybe you're going to see the results a year, 2 years from now. But nowadays in the restaurant space, you don't have the time for that. So what are the quickest impacts you can have that maybe haven't, been thought of, haven't been looked at, or hasn't been a priority, or a sweet spot of, the prior, person that was in that position, or the team just, wasn't thinking of it, because we've all been there. Some of the greatest ideas are something like, geez, how did I not think of that? And can come from anywhere. I mean, I used to love walking in the restaurants, talking to everyone. I mean, one of the best ideas ever came from, someone working dishes. And it's just a matter of, everyone has their different perspective. And sometimes you just need that little bit of help, to look at it. So, to your point, the lowest hanging fruit to try to, get the quickest results that you can.
Yeah, I call it having tourist mentality, right? When I first moved to New York City, I was like, I'm going to try to be a tourist as long as I can before I stop caring. So I'm going to go to the Empire State Building. I'm going to go to the Statue of Liberty. I'm going to go see Elsa. Like, I'm going to stay in that mode. Same thing as like a marketer. When you come into a new system, like, you have fresh eyes. Go spend an hour looking at the website. Go spend an hour looking at the social media, because you're immediately like, why is this in our bio? How come we don't have this link here? Because once you're ingrained, it's a lot harder to see that stuff, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think, the consumer experience, and one of the biggest mistakes marketers make is we put on, in my case at Margaritaville, the parrot colored glasses, at Darden, the green Olive Garden colored glasses. And I like to use the phrase, the Amazon effect. And Amazon has changed everything for us. Consumers want immediate gratification the way they want it. And, probably the biggest mistake marketers make is, I want you to behave this specific way, this, reason. And, we create a lot of friction as marketers. And, from everything of how we want people to order, how we want them to behave, when we want them to come. And consumers just don't behave that way anymore. I mean, I always joke, who's going to be the best marketer in the world? Whoever can figure out how to get people in Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday from, 2:30 to 4:30 in a non-tourist market, when you don't have people on, London time or, West Coast time. But the reality is, you're never going to make a huge dent there. You may be able to make a little bit, but, those are the things where, as marketers, I think the days of, because of Amazon, the consumer is one now in power. And yes, we can, do a lot of things to try to get their attention, try to drive them in. But this mentality, and I know we're going to touch on loyalty, and you and I know a lot of loyalty programs try to do that. And you and I both hate them. I'll download an app and force you to do that. But, that's, I think, one of the big things as marketers. We need to think of ourselves as a consumer, even when we're sitting in that role. Am I going to jump through 20 hoops to go do something? Absolutely not. My time's too valuable. I don't like, despite, your opening, visiting every Disney park around the world, I do not like lines. I do not waiting. As you know, I don't like third-party delivery, but guess what? A lot of people do. That's the way they behave. So regardless of what my, preconceived notions are, or my personal opinions, I need to put those aside and say, okay, well, I'm not a third-party fan. I don't like paying more. I don't like relying on the quality, how long that food takes. I like go picking it up myself. There's a huge population that's literally how they are. They never leave that ether of third party. And yes, we all know how vital first party data is. But if you're not playing in that third party, literally you are missing those guests. It's like, shut the lights off on the front of the building and they're driving by not even knowing you're there. So, those are the things as a marketer, we need to behave the way people are acting versus what we want, or even how we act personally.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's better to optimize the channel the way the guest wants it, in a way that works for your business, rather than trying to get somebody away from a channel. And look, I still believe that you build third party specifically. You put the conversion tools into place, right? But you don't focus on the impossible, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's more about managing. We totally align on this, because this is going to be a whole show about, we agree. We agree. What's your favorite channel for guest retention, and why?
So I'm a big fan of, email. And why I say that is, I know that we're all bombarded by email. And I would say the ultimate, if you have the tools and the opt-in and to do it right, certainly SMSing. But, that's one of those, you got to make sure that's how the guest wants to be received and how they want to get their communication, because we know people are responsive. And one of the biggest mistakes is, hey, I'm just going to SMS because I got the phone number, and, I've got a blind privacy policy that's 40 pages deep and it says I can do it. I always like to say, if I haven't opted in that way, you better not do anything unless it's transactional, a la my planes boarding, a la my hotels ready. You start doing that and just sending, multiple texts, it's a quick way to turn them off. But why I like email is, people still glance at them, look at them, and it is a almost as close to free as you can get method of communication. And it's very easy to get emails. Yes, there's that, portion of the population that has here's my marketing email address I use, and here's my personal one. But there's still a lot of people that will get them, will glance at them. And I think in marketing in general, content is king. As we know, yes, we all do TikTok, we all do Instagram, we all do all of these. But at the end of the day, you're relying on an algorithm. In the case of TikTok, does it go viral? And, it's a lot of work to do it for, potentially a little bit of luck to really get that notice. But on email, someone has provided it to you. Again, if you get first party emails through, contesting, through your online ordering, through Wi-Fi in the restaurant, all those methods that we know of how you can acquire a customer's email, not a purchase lead. But if you get that email, they're literally saying, yep, I'm willing to hear about you. And hopefully you can put something compelling, whether it's an LTO. I saw somewhere it's, what's today's special day? The crepe.
National Crepe Suzette Day.
Crepe Suzette. And I know, Rev, I can always count on you those special days. But those are the things where you never know what someone's going to glance at. Hey, that's neat. I'm going to go do that. I'm going to take part. That great LTO, that great offer, whatever it may be. So I'm still a big email fan because it's inexpensive and it still works.
Yeah, somebody said to me the other day, like the whole thing, like, oh, people have this marketing email in the promotions box. I was like, I don't care. Like the number one thing about retention is helping you to stay top of mind. And even if I don't open the email, but I just see that I got an email from Shake Shack, I'm now thinking about Shake Shack, like even if it's for a microsecond. But, I'm thinking about stuff all day. And if you got my brain for a second, like that's better than any other restaurant that didn't email me. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And to your point as well, everything, the devil's in the details. So we're talking at a high level. The key is messaging and then frequency. You and I both have shared, okay, I don't need 5 emails from you for a week. You turn me off more than you help me. What that frequency.
Press. Did you hear me, Juice Press?
Yeah. So, and it's going to be different in every brand based on the usage. I mean, if you're one of those brands, and I worked at one where if we got a guest in once a year or once every 6 months, that was the frequency, for the average guest. So to send someone 3 or 4 weeks and 3 or 4 emails a week is absurd. Maybe if you're, a QSR where you're getting regular frequency, again, you can do a little bit more frequent, but to just have oh, so-and-so does it this many times, that's what I'm going to do. One of our favorites that we share great email messages, Capital Grill. They don't send a lot of them, but when they do, they are very impactful, compelling messaging for the demographic and the clientele they're trying to reach. And it's not that frequent. I mean, if it's every 2-3 weeks, I know now we just got one, of course, because Mother's Day is coming up. But again, that's relevant, for what the clientele is. Mother's Day, you tend to up it because, again, our mothers, brought us into this world and, we got to take care of them. Whereas Father's Day is, an aftermath and we just watch the US Open, most males.
I mean, you've heard me wax poetic how much I love the email program at Capital Grill, but legit, last night, me and my buddy went to the mall, to the AMC theater to see Thunderbolts, no surprises, right? And there's a Capital Grill on the opposite side of the mall. I was like, oh, let's go to the Capital Grill. Like it's like always top of mind for me. Now we didn't go because it was the opposite side of the mall and there's literally a Grand Lux like attached to the theater. It was just easier. But like I see the Capital Grill and it triggers me because they have great email communication.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, this is a loaded question.
Okay.
I know it's a loaded question, but I'm letting everybody who's watching and listening know this is a loaded question. Okay, all these QSR brands are trying to get guests like right into loyalty. Is that the right move to go straight into loyalty, or is there a better move?
So absolutely, I think there's a better move. And I'm going to broaden it a little bit to restaurants in general. In a QSR, to a degree, it's more of a commodity, from a standpoint where they're positioned. So, can you get away with that? Especially a lot of these apps. And I look at my son who's in college. He is all over the McDonald's app. I mean, they do great deals. Me, I don't go there frequently, but when I do, I pay the $6-7 for, 2 items. He goes and gets like 10 items for $5. I would say if you're going after that targeted demo of the bargain hunter, the value, and they do great offers, and it's all about frequency, I think you can get away with that. But, to the earlier point, and, to replicate that, yes, McDonald's, you and I joke, Starbucks, McDonald's have rooms full of people just trying to figure stuff out. So that's, to both of us, sort of the canary in the coal mine of when they start having traffic problems, the rest of us better buckle up for a wild ride. But, to your point, there's a lot of brands, especially in the casual dining space, that behave the same way. And I just, on my podcast, had a guest last week, and we were talking about, okay, it's no different than if we're dating. If I ask you to marry me, it's like, whoa, 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 whoa. I don't even know you. I haven't even gone out on a date. Let's, go and, see how things work. And a big part of this comes down to KPIs from the, CEO level, from the board, whatever it may be, is, okay, it's all about loyalty. They'll, read it, get them to sign up for the loyalty program, get them to sign up. Okay, well, at the end of the day, what are they signing up for? Normally, to sign up for a loyalty program, you're having to provide something. But if someone doesn't even know what your brand's about or hasn't been to your brands, how are they going to sign up for loyalty other than to get that deal on the first usage? And usually those offers tend to be a little bit more aggressive. And you end up with what I like to say is a corrupted, loyalty database. To me, a loyalty member is someone who's been there, and hopefully your ops team is stellar, delivered. It was a great experience. And at that point, you know what? This was great. I want to come back. And they get the loyalty offer, whether at the table, whether, it's a Ziosk, if you're at a restaurant that has one, whatever method it may be. So, I feel like someone needs to understand what your brand is before you get them straight into loyalty. Because again, that if they don't know what you stand for, don't know what the experience is, then what's your measurement? Because in a loyalty program, it's all about frequency. If you signed up a bunch of non-users into your loyalty, and I've had to do it in my past, via Facebook, hey, they show up first thing on your homepage, sign up for loyalty, get a free whatever, $5 off, free app, free burger. It doesn't matter. Everyone, has what their financial model's in. Is that really a loyalty member versus new guest acquisition? And both important strategies, but to intermix them, you're going to screw up the KPIs of what your retention is of your loyalty members and what your frequency is if 50% of them are not really loyalty members and are discovering your brand.
Yeah, I would agree 100%. To me, it's about the reduction of unknowns, and asking for your email is much easier than getting you to download an app, put your name in, blah, blah. And I think there's a lot of restaurant guests out there that are happy to receive an email from you that aren't necessarily interested in deals and points. And I mean, everybody's different. You're like me, I will not make a purchase unless I get the points. I'm now at that level, but like that's at restaurants I frequent, like Wendy's. I got a 9-year-old, right? But like, for the local pizza joint, like I don't need an app. You know what I mean? I don't need loyalty. I don't need it. Let's just give my email address. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So you went there, and we both, when we really rant and were together, on those food crawls, is back to my point of frictionless, the app requirement of loyalty. And I know there's a lot out there. I'm no matter what, I like the phone number. I can remember my phone number. It's pretty much the unique identifier. I mean, at some point, almost a phone is a chip in someone's arm because, everyone always has their phone. But, you've talked about it, required app. I go to join a loyalty program. Oh, the only way to do it is to download the app. You've lost me. And trust me, I join as many as I can because I want to see what others are doing, because there's some, great things happening out there. And then there's some crappy ones happening. Likewise, and it's not loyalty, but again, similar topic, when I go to online order for somewhere. As I said, I try not to go third party because of the various reasons. And I also know what the restaurants pay. So I go direct. Hey, you got to set up a loyalty account to order online. No, you better have that button of I want to log in as a guest, because the number of places I've made the decision through their marketing, I'm going to go dine there, and then they make it too difficult to order online, that I just bail and go somewhere else. And, again, yes, I get it. We all want to be able to track everything a guest does. What do they eat? So we can then, market appropriately through our CRM of what items you like, what are related when we come out with LTOs. But at the end of the day, not everyone wants to be a member of your loyalty that has to download an app or that has to create an account to order for the first time online. So, all those things, again, I understand the need, and I've been there earlier in my career, but guests have just evolved. I mean, it was a whole heck of a lot easier when I was at Hard Rock in, 2004 to 2012. And we just started to get social, out there. And, most of my advertising campaign, I was looking one up a couple of weeks ago, and I think 80% of the stuff doesn't exist anymore. Airline in-flight magazines, because our biggest thing was, is there a Hard Rock there? I don't even know if there's one left. I haven't seen one. Wear magazines, the various in-hotel publications. We did have some billboards, so those are still relevant, still very impactful. But, again, the consumers have changed, and I still blame a big part of it on Amazon, which is great as a consumer. The fact I can pretty much order anything and have it worst case within a day is pretty insane, versus, when we first started, it could be a week or, even longer for something to get to your, house.
I broke my external computer speakers about a month ago. Like, that's how I can hear you, right?
Yep.
I literally had replacement speakers the same day from Amazon. Like, that's amazing. I didn't even have to leave my desk. Okay. I want to make sure we cover everything I want to get to today. I want to switch. We've been talking a lot about retention. Obviously, retention is super important. Acquisition costs dollars, retention costs pennies. But I want to switch to actually talk about acquisition. What do you think are the most scalable and easy to implement guest acquisition tactics? Now, we could go on for hours, but let's keep it to a couple minutes.
So, I mean, there's a lot of great things happening out there. Certainly, Nift were one, but one of my favorites, and especially in these tough times, is people are emotional and make a lot of decisions by emotions. And, going back to guerrilla marketing, I love, if your concept can handle it, the spirit nights, the fundraising nights. And, I think about it. I have 3 kids, empty nester now. My eldest, is a junior in college, but we did the elementary schools. We did the rowing. We did the travel baseball going to Cooperstown. And I always like to look at others, and I'm a huge fan of Chick-fil-A. I think, forever, they never spent money on marketing. They had that local store marketing, and you walk into a Chick-fil-A every night. It's a different school. It's a different team. It's a different church, maybe a church that will have their fundraiser, and they give a percentage of sales. Again, I view that as a marketing cost. And, it's not at the heat of lunch when, the lines wrap around the building. It's, 6 to 9 p.m. on a Monday, a Tuesday, a Wednesday. And they work because, my wife's a teacher and they still have it. Down here in Orlando, BurgerFi does it. Texas Roadhouse does it. And these are all, Texas Roadhouse, Chick-fil-A, successful brands that have seen same-store sales increases for a long period of time. But it's, you get that passion, you get that emotion. And, again, when my son was on the baseball team, you don't want to let your kids down. I mean, you were talking, you're doing a summer theme park visit with your son because that's what he wanted to do. You don't want to be the parent that, no, we're not going here for dinner. You're going to be the only one on the team who we don't support to raise funds for, the Cooperstown trip that you're raising money for. So, and it's something that's easy because at the end of the day, if you've got a good operations team, it's literally making a phone call to whatever group. And the nice thing is once you do it once, and if you do it well, literally you'll end up with a calendar of people. Hey, when could we do this again in 2-3 months from now, whatever it is. And it's just something that keeps going and goes on autopilot. And, it takes a little bit work up front, but, you can look at the brands and, there's, especially now as we look, people need money, schools need money, sports teams. We know what the situation is with disposable income. Certainly our industry, I saw yesterday, a large number of people are going to be dining out less, with the latest report out there. So, anything a restaurant to do can help. And it also shows that even if you're a chain, I care about my local community. I care about the people. And, nowadays, a lot of decisions are made off of emotion. Certainly the assumption you got to deliver on the food, on the beverage. You're never going to overcome poor operations from a marketing standpoint. But, all things being equal, the person who has a passion about, they care about my community, they care about that, are going to end up winning.
Every restaurant, regardless of who the brand is local. Like the McDonald's in my town is our McDonald's, and the people that work there live here, and the people that eat there live here. Yep. So for sure. Okay, we got 5 minutes left. There's a couple of things I definitely want to cover. Now, I want to talk about where you and I learn all this stuff, other than doing it, right?
Yeah.
Where do we learn it? I know you're going to be at Meg, right? You're going to be we're recording this
Absolutely.
on May 6th of 2025. Meg is next week. You've been to Meg how many times?
Yeah, probably about 4 or 5 times. I get COVID sort of, gave me that memory loss, that, time periods. But I think you and I may have been 17 the first time at Meg.
Yeah, so Meg, for those who don't know, is the Marketing Executives Group. It's a for marketers, by marketers restaurant conference that happens the 2 days before the NRA show in Chicago. What is it that you love about Meg?
What I love about Meg, and I'm sitting now on the sponsor side, but as a 25 year on the brand side, is even though there's sponsors there, it's not a hard pitch. I mean, it is truly people presenting
says on the website, no pitch conference.
Yeah, no pitch. And again, I respect that. But to me, Meg was a great place, great speakers to share ideas. And then they'll do breakouts with different topics that really impact marketers and relevant topics. Some of the things we've been talking about: driving traffic, customer acquisition, guest retention. And even from the standpoint, my most recent Meg, when I was at Margaritaville, I was looking for a new loyalty platform, and literally was able to sit at the table, go around and hear the pros and cons of each different platform out there. And the irony is that one of the providers was sitting there, and two of the people said what the negatives were and what the pros were. So, it's sort of like an unfiltered place to get help of, no matter where we are, we're always having things maybe we haven't solved or are trying to solve, and, relying on others. That's one of the great things in the restaurant space. Although we are, in theory, competitors, with a number of brands, I'm a big believer of, as things rise, all boats rise together. So it's one, am I going to give you my deep, dark secrets to, my competitive advantage? Absolutely not. But, there's certain things of, hey, what do you think of this provider? What do you think of that? That, is a great thing for sharing at Meg. And you always walk away with a long checklist of, okay, here's what I need to go try to solve some of those things that are keeping me awake at night.
Amen. By the way, still on my desk, your card. So if you're a marketer and you want to learn about marketing, go check out Meg. Brian and I will be there. You can ask Brian all these questions in person. I'll be hosting the new store opening playbook roundtable, which is a good. Okay, again, we got a couple minutes here. I want to talk about, again, where we learned this. Now, the Restaurant Marketing Workshop, June 2nd and 3rd at Indianapolis. This is a brand new show. Again, the Restaurant Marketing Workshop, June 2nd and 3rd in Indianapolis. This is intended to be 2.5 days of like playbooks, tactics, how-tos. It's like literally go learn how to do marketing. Now, you guys are hosting or sponsoring a session on the second day called Customer Acquisition That Actually Works. You're going to have Brandy from And Pizza and Jerry from Dave's Hot Chicken. You want to talk a little bit about that and why people should go check it out?
Yeah. So, our session, and we, just last week put things together. Each of us are going to have a couple case studies, 5 minutes, going in detail what works and, what the results are. So literally you could go back to your location, replicate it, and go through and share what that playbook is to be able to go do it and deliver. And, in addition, obviously, as I said, with Nift, we're going to be sharing, how we work and how we help restaurants with customer acquisition. I've been fortunate, came on board, was actually working with them and talking with them when I was at Margaritaville, because I just got fed up of, I didn't have the super large budget. So I wasn't able to track credit card transactions and see if someone saw Meta or Yelp, did they ultimately end up a butt in the seat? So, what we do at Nift is on customer acquisition, we have full funnel trackability and all those things. We can suppress your existing guests, because I hated all those debates with the CFO of you're cannibalizing versus incrementality, and no contracts. Because I used to always hate when people would pitch me rainbows and unicorns and promises. And I'd say, okay, great. And if it doesn't work the way you promise, I don't pay you, right? And they'd start quivering and shaking. So at Nift, we were able to build something that as a restaurant marketer, you can totally track from, I hate to use the word impressions, but it's, it's engagements where people engage with your brand. They select your gift, which is we provide you the customer data to be able to market to them. and then redemption of 5 to 15% starts at $100 a location, fully trackable and no contracts. At the end of the day, if we can't deliver what we say, you have every right to get out, which was the other thing I hated is, yeah, we can do this. It takes 5 months and, no out clause. So at this conference, we're going to share ideas where people ultimately could end up tracking and delivering and get more butts and seats, orders online, whatever your concept is.
Awesome. And as we wrap up the show, every single restaurant brand that I represent as the head of marketing is using Nift, Handcraft Burgers and Brew, Salad House, and Crazy Pita. This thing works. If you have any questions about Nift, you should just find Brian on literally any social media network. LinkedIn's probably the best one.
Yeah.
If you want to learn how to be a better marketer, join us at Meg next week. And also, this is not an and or. I would do both. I would go to Meg in Chicago next week before NRA, and June 2nd and June 3rd, the Restaurant Marketing Workshop in Indianapolis. You can go see Brian present on stage and have a conversation with him. So, Brian, any parting words here before we jump?
No, to your point, I mean, I know how lonely it could be when you're sitting there, and especially when times aren't great in the industry. And the best way to, help yourself out of there, hopefully you can get that little bit of budget to go attend the conferences and get some of those ideas, because you will come back with things that you're able to solve some of those headaches and see some results at both conferences.
Totally. If you have questions about Nift, hit up Brian. If you can't find him, hit me. I'll connect you. Join us at Meg next week. Come learn about marketing. And then without a doubt, Restaurant Marketing Workshop, you will learn how to be a better marketer. I want to thank you for joining us today. Please jam that subscribe button on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, or wherever you like to listen in, and make it a great, tasty day.